Okay, welcome. We have Emily Killeen here with, she's a spiritual yoga teacher and a sobriety coach. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here with you.
Yes. So Emily and I we haven't known each other that long. We came into each other's field in our little Instagram pod. Yeah, like a few months ago.
Months ago, yeah.
Yeah. But I've been really drawn to your work because I just think it's really important. And also, I'm just so drawn to just your life in general. You live like on this little like ranch retreat space in Arizona, and you're like off the grid in a sense, and it just feels really dreamy. So I'm excited to chat with you.
Thank you.
So, Emily, can you want to start us off by talking about how you got on this journey in the first place of being a sobriety coach?
Yeah, I'd love to talk about that. So I got into the career or the business of being a sobriety coach because I am in sobriety myself. I'm in recovery. And I grew up in Wisconsin, where drinking is very prevalent. And I actually grew up in a small town next to a bowling alley. And both of my parents drank very heavily. So it was super common. And it was I started drinking when I was young, and from a very early age, I knew that I had a problem. And my mom took me to Alateen because of my father's drinking when I was really young. So I've kind of got in the recovery community from a young age. And at that point, it was for my father's drinking. But she ended up getting sober too. But it kind of got me into the sense like getting sober is a thing and learning about sobriety and the different tools that can help. But I was so young, I was like 14 at that time, so I wasn't ready to get sober. And when I turned 18, I started drinking more heavily and got introduced to drugs as well. And that is when I really realized that I had a problem. So I think I went to my first AA meeting when I was only 19. And my mom had gotten sober at that point too. And so I kind of had her to lean on for my sobriety, but I just wasn't ready yet. I loved to go out and be social, to go to concerts, and just so many things revolve around drinking when you're in that college age. And so I was in and out of recovery really for over 10 years, getting like 3 months sober, 6 months sober, but never really tapping into the sober lifestyle or making new friends or finding happiness in sobriety. And when I found yoga, and in my yoga teacher training, that was the longest stint of sobriety that I got. And I really started to tune into my mind, body, and soul, started to calm the mind and just listen to my intuition. And I learned that through my yoga practice. And that wasn't the end of my drinking career. I did move to California and continued drinking, but it was just kind of like an ebb and flow in and out of sobriety. But each time I would get sober, I would learn new things about myself, learn new tools, and start to feel more comfortable in my own skin. But for some reason, I kept going back to the drinking, and I don't know exactly what that is. But when I met my husband, and he wasn't my husband when I met him, obviously, but he could tell that I had a drinking problem. And when he kind of gave me the ultimatum, and I had done some things that I would never do when I was sober, I was two totally different people when I was sober and when I was drinking, I made the decision that I'm done. And something changed for me. And I don't know exactly what that was, but I think it's just a journey of all the recovery that I did, the AA, the outpatient treatment, and just connecting with friends and learning how to feel happy, sober, and free was definitely a turning point. And I felt something in me, like, I just want to help people. I thought it was like life coaching of some sort. And then I went to a conference and someone said, you should just teach what's easy for you. And at that point, I had already been coaching friends and family members or anyone that reached out and said, hey, I'm having trouble with my alcohol use. And I was already kind of coaching them. And so I kind of took that and worked with a business coach and now I'm a sobriety coach and I'm loving it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think it can be really hard for people to fully commit to being sober because of just how it's the norm in society. And I know you and I chatted once before. I told you about how, like, whenever I choose not to drink, people are always like, what? Why? Like, are you not feeling well? Are you pregnant? Like, no, maybe I just don't want to drink. Or when you even, I remember, like, because I have a very similar story as well, where I started drinking and doing drugs at a very, very, very young age, and that was the basis of my life for many years. And once I was like in my early 20s and I decided that, this isn't really feeling that great to me anymore, especially because I too got into like the yoga, Reiki, all of that, and you start to realize that there's so much more inside of you and all around you that you don't really need the alcohol, that you also start to lose some friends as well. And that hurts. That sucks. And I rescued my first dog when I decided to stop drinking, and she was just like a little puppy. And so she was like my best friend. And if it wasn't for her, who knows? I probably just would have been like, oh, well, fuck it. I'm just gonna keep drinking then like this and doing drugs and just being really reckless like this.
Yeah, having animals can be super helpful and having a purpose. And recently I've been thinking about the concept of how we are creative beings. And when we're not tapping into that creativity or that passion, or we don't really know what our life's purpose is, a lot of times we don't know what to do with that energy. And that's why people drink and do drugs. So taking the time to get sober, to get clear, to dive deep and kind of discover, what makes me light up, what are the things that I like to do. So that's something that I really work with my clients too, because there is so much more.
There is. I love that. That makes me think too about college kids. I had a baby at the end of my senior year, so I didn't go to college, but I definitely still would go see some friends at college, and that's all kids do is they just drink. Like they drink until they're really putting their life and their health in danger. And it makes me think of well, I wonder if it has anything to do with them not really understanding their own life purpose and the intensity of that, of your parents literally spending all this money to send you to this institution and you have no idea what the hell you want to do. And so it's almost you want to just drink away that stress and that pressure.
I totally feel that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting. I know we've talked about that before too, not too long ago, of just the pressure of how just having these labels at such a young age. Yeah. Cool. Okay. So how long have you been sober now?
I've been sober almost a year and a half. It would
Nice.
be 3 years, but I had one night about a year and a half ago. What do they call it? I needed to do some more experimenting or something. And I'd like to say that each time I relapsed or went back out to drink or had a night, you do learn lessons along the way. And the big thing that I had in my mind is I had over a year and a half of sobriety at that point. And I was really stressed with opening our wedding venue and wellness retreat and moving out to the country and working really hard. I felt like I deserved to have a drink. I deserved to get drunk, And what happened that night is I drank by myself and I got super wasted and I blacked out and I don't remember anything. And I was sick, super sick for one day and then felt super off for a week. And it took me a long time to kind of feel back to my normal self. And then I was like, whoa, this is not what I deserve at all. I don't deserve that. So I think that was my last time having a drink. One cool thing about that is it's my mom's sobriety date too. So when I celebrated a year, she celebrated 20 years. So I'm really close with my mom. So it's kind of cool to have that little connection.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard too that so alcohol obviously is a depressant, but it stays in your system for 7 days after, continuing to just kind of keep you down for that week after.
It does. Yeah. And that's why so many people say that they drink because they're depressed or they drink because they have anxiety. But the effects of alcohol just ignite all of those other things. And so It's hard to see that at first. It takes a little time to clear the wreckage if you've been drinking heavily for a long period of time.
Yeah.
But I've seen and I've experienced that on the other side of it. And like you said, yeah, you have to, sometimes you lose friends, sometimes you have to change things around, and it's uncomfortable. And at first it kind of feels like it sucks. But once you get over that hump and you kind of create the new life, you start to realize that it's truly a gift, and there's so much more to life. And you can really find so much happiness and freedom in sobriety.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like, I was gonna say it. So, like, one of the biggest reasons that I'm so drawn to your work is because my dad died of cirrhosis a couple years ago. And what's really interesting about him is that he was a very high functioning alcoholic. So, like, he always kept a job. Like, he never had a DUI. He got in trouble like in his early years for some other drugs, but like never alcohol. It was never a problem. He took good care of his family. You know, like I said, had a good job, decent pay, all that stuff. And he died at 63 years old. And he knew it. He knew it. And the thing too was that he'd go to AA and he'd hear these like crazy stories from other people. And then he'd come home and be like, oh, well, I'm not really an alcoholic. I don't have these stories. But my dad was in Vietnam, and he also, when he was in high school, got a girl pregnant twice, and ended up giving these kids up for adoption. Like, it's just such like a really long story. He just had a lot of skeletons in his closet. And I think that if there's more people like you who could help people to stop their drinking and face those skeletons in a beautiful container, I think more people could find their sobriety. I think my dad just was, he knew that if he would quit drinking that he'd have to face it all. And after however many, 40 some years of burying it all down, he felt like it'd be too much.
Yeah, I'm really sorry to hear that about your dad. And it's so taxing on the body, more than we really even think, especially if someone is functioning as much as your father was.
Mm-hmm.
But over time, it starts to add up. And I like that you mentioned the AA thing, because I actually don't go to AA anymore, but I did many times throughout the years. And my mom loves AA. It works for many, many people, but for many other people, maybe this more stubborn type like myself, or your dad that's like, I'm not like them, rather than finding the similarities, just like being like, yeah, that's not really like me, or not wanting to follow their rules. Sobriety coaching is a nice alternative. You get a little bit more one-on-one, and it's not like a counselor situation, because like I've been there, and in some cases, I'm able to share my experience, and they can tell that I really know what they're going through. And so, yeah, it's really just nice to have that space. And for so many, they try to do it on their own. And that's when they call it white knuckling. And it can really suck when you're doing it on your own, because your family doesn't understand. And you feel like it's not fair that you can't drink at the Christmas party when everyone else is. And hiring someone, or at least having a community of support of people that understand, it really, really helps. And yeah, just like you said, all of the trauma stuff, that stuff needs to be worked through if there is some of that going on, and it just helps to talk it out.
Yeah. I mean, because there usually is, especially if you start drinking at a very young age. It's usually something that you're just trying to numb out, or you become so accustomed to drinking to numb out. Oh, we had an awful day, so I came home and drank a whole bottle of wine, and it's like a joke, right? It's like, oh yeah, it's funny, it's whatever, but it's like, but no, like, did you take the time to even like unpack that? Because even the tiniest little things that you continue to numb out are going to continue to grow to be bigger and bigger. And at the end of the day, or at the end of that spell, it may feel like too big, too difficult to go back to. So it's just easier to keep on keeping on.
And it's so socially accepted, and that's what people do. They have a rough day at work, they go out for happy hour, and they get drunk with everyone. And so many people are doing it. But at the same time, so many people are waking up and they are getting sober. And I love to share this. with my clients or anyone that's thinking about sobriety, it's like there's a lot of people choosing not to drink just because of health. There's kombucha, there's some sober bars, there's a lot of alternatives now, which makes it a little bit more easy than to get sober than it was in the past, I think. So, and there's so many tools with online forums and online support groups and sobriety coaches, like none of that existed back in the day. So we have so many tools.
Yoga for the 12, Y12SR, yoga for the 12 step.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you Y12SR or no?
I am not. I haven't done that training, just 200-hour, but I do incorporate spiritual themes, and I can definitely teach a recovery yoga class, which I've done in the past, but not technically certified for that.
Okay. So, and you live on this, you live in like the middle of nowhere in Arizona, correct? Okay.
That's what I say. My husband always kind of kicks me when I say that. He's like, it's not in the middle of nowhere. But so we live outside of a little town called Ashford, and it's unincorporated. There's no grocery store, there's no coffee shop, and there is like a gas station and a barbecue restaurant. But we live 10 minutes outside of that town on a 20-acre ranch. And we're about an hour west of Flagstaff and about 2.5 hours north of Phoenix. And Sedona, which I love, is only an hour and a half drive. So we take day trips there all the time. But yeah, we bought 20 acres. My husband is a wedding photographer, and he had an idea of opening a wedding venue. And I had an idea of opening a yoga studio, which we're not opening a yoga studio, but I kind of turned that vision into a wellness retreat. So now it's a wedding venue and a wellness retreat, and it's called Ananda Retreat, which means highest bliss in Sanskrit. Yeah, and we opened a couple years ago, actually about 1.5 years ago. Our wedding was the first wedding on the property. So wow. Yeah, we've got a little tiny home. It's 800 square feet and a bunch of animals, and we just started our garden. Thanks to the quarantine, we've had extra time to work on the garden, and we're hosting weddings, and soon we'll be hosting wellness retreats as well. We don't have all the lodging yet for that, but we're open for weddings.
I love that so much.
Yeah.
Have you had to cancel any weddings so far this year because of?
Yeah, so Josh, with his photography, he had to cancel or reschedule quite a few. And then we did have a June and July wedding, and they have chosen to reschedule. They haven't picked their dates yet. Okay. And then we have a couple fall weddings, and they're even like, I don't, just because of travel and plans. And so they're considering rescheduling as well. So yeah, it's definitely been unfortunate, but we're rolling with the punches, and surprisingly people have been pretty understanding, both in the wedding business and then also with my retreat business, because I've had to reschedule a couple of retreats and workshops as well.
Yeah, I had to reschedule a retreat too. I just canceled it. I didn't even reschedule it because I didn't even know when to reschedule it for, so I just went ahead and canceled it, and when I get the call again, we'll look back and do it.
Yeah. There you go.
All right. So Emily, so tell me, so what is the typical, like when somebody works with you, what does that look like?
Well, it's a mentorship. So I recommend 3 months, but we just go month by month. So we start off with the first month and then add on from there. And with each client, we have 1 call a week. It's just about a 45-minute call. And I kind of check in with where they're at and give them tips, tools, tricks that I think will help them. And we really work on all aspects of the life, their relationships, their home situation, their job, tapping into passions. A big part of what I encourage is movement, because I believe strongly in like moving the energy in the body. So whether they're into yoga or going on nature walks or whatever they like for their movement, just kind of meeting them where they are at. Like I have one client that doesn't like the term exercise. So we always just call it movement, and she likes to dance in the morning. And so then, I just encourage her and check in on her. And then working on all of the tools. So I've got a couple tools that I give freely, and they're what I've learned in recovery and outpatient that I'd love to share with you and the listeners. The first one is HALT, and it's hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Have you ever heard of that, Lauren?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so oftentimes when we get the urge to have a drink or smoke weed or use whatever we use, we are one of those things: hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. So if we're hungry, that one's easy. Have a snack or eat your meal and then reevaluate. Do you still feel like you really need that drink? If you're angry, if you're, fighting with your partner, taking some time, maybe you need to go on a walk or journal or, just talk it out with them or give it some time. If you're lonely, I always encourage people, I highly recommend people trying to find a sober network. So connecting with any sober friends, reaching out to me, just reaching out so that you don't feel lonely. And then tired, which may seem off to some people, but this was actually one of my number one triggers. When I was just feeling really tired, it's like, oh, I just want that drink. Because for me, it would give me energy and like not make me feel tired anymore. And so if you're tired, take a nap, drink some caffeine. I'm still kind of addicted to caffeine, I'm not gonna lie. And then, or just go to bed early, and that's okay. And then I've added bored to this one with quarantine times, because we are at home and so many of us are finding this extra time. So really just finding little projects to do around the house, or I've suggested for some of my clients to get into a new hobby or try a new online course. There's so many courses online and free content out there to consume. So that's another one. So the hungry, angry, lonely, tired is a super good tool. And then the other one is playing the tape out. So you get to the afternoon and you're like, I kind of want to have that glass of wine as I'm cooking dinner. And if you have a drinking problem, oftentimes that one glass of wine will lead to 2 or 3 or the whole bottle. So when you're thinking about having that one glass of wine, just trying to play the tape out and being honest. Like, do you want to have 4 glasses of wine and be drunk tonight and wake up in the morning and feel a little hungover? And just thinking about all the consequences that happen when we drink. Oftentimes I would get in an argument with my partner or, say something I didn't mean or procrastinate. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Those of us that do have drinking problems, we know. So just kind of playing the tape out and being like, do I really want that? So those are 2 helpful tools that I work with my clients. And then just really, helping them find their passions and really connect and try to find that inner peace. And if trauma or stuff from the past comes up, I love to just be support in listening and giving them the space to talk those things out. And then because I'm not actually a certified sobriety coach, I am not a therapist or a doctor. If a client does have issues that I believe are a little deeper than what I'm trained in, I always have references to guide them to someone else that might be able to help them in a better way.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that you added, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I just gonna say, I just love how you added the bored part to the HALT, because it's very true. And especially right now, like before we hopped on, I talked to you about TikTok. Even I know so many people who are like, oh, whatever, I'm going to join TikTok now during this time. I'm going to learn the dances, do these things. It'll be fun. But when you go on there, especially if you're somebody who is trying to abstain from alcohol during this time, or like just an overuse of alcohol, it's really all you see. So it's difficult to sometimes even find right now the extra like passion or just something like that feels fun without it being involved with drinking.
Well, and not being able to go anywhere. I mean, I've got that Happy Sober Free Facebook community, and I was going back to the last time I did a 30-day challenge and looking at all the posts. It's like, go to a movie, go to an arboretum, and like I can't suggest any of those things at this time, really. So everyone's kind of navigating a new way. And I'm hoping that most people have a porch or a patio or can still like take their dog on a walk, just getting out and finding movement. But yeah, it's a really challenging time, and there's so many people that are day drinking and drinking regularly, and it depends on who your circle is. Like if your circle is a bunch of people that have been drinking for a long time and that's all your friends and family members and that's the normal, it's hard for you to even see that there's another way. But I always tell people, when I moved to Arizona, I hardly knew anyone, and I just felt like I wasn't finding my tribe. But after a little while, and I don't go to AA meetings, but I tell everyone that I am in recovery and that I'm sober. And I don't know what it is. It's kind of like the spiritual awakening and things just kind of unfolding as they do when you're doing the right thing. But all these sober people keep just like flocking into my life, and it's awesome. And I'm so grateful for that. And when you start to make those connections with, you know, other individuals that maybe they're not sober, but maybe they don't drink often, and you can just have real solid connections. Because for me, that's what I loved. I love the social aspect of drinking and going out to the concerts and like connecting with the people and hanging out at the music festivals. And you can still find all those things in the sober community, in the spiritual community. And that's why I love the women's retreats that I lead, which aren't only for sober women, but they are sober retreats. There's no drugs or alcohol involved. So I just love being able to, you know, connect with 15 women in Sedona and do all these fun things that none of the activities revolve around alcohol.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it shows people too, like, look, you can connect, you can have fun, you can make friendships and be sober. You
Right.
can do it.
Yeah. And it's awesome. And it's really rewarding once you tap into that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really want to come to one of your retreats.
I'd love to have you there. Hopefully September. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like I cut you off on your list of tips. Did you have any more to share?
No, I was just going to say thank you. That's when you thought you cut me off, I was just saying thank you. But I mean, I definitely have more tips. One thing for the listeners right now is, well, I've got my Happy Sober Free community, and I post inspirational posts and tips, tools, and tricks every day in there. But also there's so many sobriety accounts on Instagram and so many sobriety podcasts. And when you start to just kind of like dive into that world and fill your brain, you start to realize how many people are sober, how many people really understand, how many people are like you. Like if your dad would have opened up a little bit more, if there would have been more tools, he would have probably made more connections with people that drank like he did and then felt like he wasn't so alone, or, you know. And that's the thing, is that we can feel so alone when we're over drinking and when we try to control it.
Mm-hmm.
And another tool is to think about the cost of the drinking. And when you think about the cost of the drinking, not just the dollars that you spend on the beer or the wine or going out, but then also calculating the takeout food and the Ubers and maybe the parking ticket that you got, or, you know, and opportunities. The cost, when you really think about it, can be a lot. And then you just have to evaluate, is the investment in the drinking worth what I'm getting out of it? And at some point, the answer is no. And, you know, and that's why people try to control it. They try, and we try to tell ourselves that it's not that bad, or it's so much fun. For so long, I told myself it was so much fun. But now looking back at it, I was like, there was a lot of drama there, you know, and so many hungover days.
Yeah. And not to mention the cost of like a whole day wasted, or 2 days wasted of just feeling like absolute shit and you can't like get out of bed. Ugh, I don't miss those days in the least. Like I still do have drinks, but like I couldn't even tell you the last time I like got drunk, because it's not worth it at all.
Yeah.
No, yeah. It's so expensive. I think about
another tool is having something else.
What's that?
We our service got a little bit choppy there for a second.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
I just remember one time, like many years ago, like when my husband and I first got together, we started talking about how, we need to like eat better and just take better care of ourselves and just shop more organically and things like that. And we literally just like took like a look at our finances and just saw how much we would spend going out. We're like, okay, we just go out less so that we can eat better. But there's a lot of people who are like, I can't eat better, and it is such a privilege to eat organically and to eat healthier. It really is. But a lot of times we are spending that money in other places that are quite unhealthy for us.
Yeah, definitely. What I was going to say is another thing that's super helpful is to have something else to drink. So I love kombucha or sparkling water. Those are kind of like my two go-tos. They do have a ton of non-alcoholic beers now, even like craft beers, which if that's something that you want, that's better than drinking an alcoholic beverage. So having something else on hand so that you feel like you have something in your hand, you still have like the sensation of, and this is especially important, I think, in the very beginning, and having your family on board. So especially right now where we're all in the house, if you have a husband or a boyfriend or a roommate that drinks and you're making the decision that you want to cut back or you want to get sober right now, it's helpful to at least voice that to them. I mean, you can't change anybody. You can't control them and say, no drinking around me. But if you tell them from, just your true heart, speak from your heart and tell them that you really are trying to cut back, you feel like you have an issue, most likely they'll understand and they can help you out with that and try to be more respectful. And that's super helpful too.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are awesome tips. Thank you.
Thanks.
So what is like the biggest transformation that you've witnessed within yourself since you've become sober?
I would say inner peace and freedom. When you are caught up in addiction, you're constantly thinking about when you're going to drink next. When you are drinking, you're like, how drunk am I going to get? Or you're trying to control it. Like, I'm only going to have one drink. I'm only going to have 3 drinks, or I'm only going to drink on the weekends. And when you are able to get sober and put all of that behind you, there's so much freedom and so much inner peace that you feel and so much extra time, and just like the possibilities open up. I would think about going to a concert and I'm like, well, I have to take off the next day and then the next day of work. There was so much planning around it. Or if I wanted to go on a vacation, I'd have to be like, well, is this a drinking vacation or am I going to try to stay sober on this vacation? So the freedom, the sense of freedom and the peace has been the biggest gift of sobriety for me.
Mm-hmm. Do you have like a collective idea of what you get from your clients when they experience it? Is there seem to be a common theme?
I would say that all of my clients have been different. A common theme is that when they start working with me, none of them want to commit to being sober forever. And so we really work on the 1 day at a time, and we shoot for the 30 days and then the 60 days, and we just kind of take it step by step. So I would say that is the most common theme, but also that they do find the peace and the clarity and more openness pretty quickly. There's always challenges that come along the way, but even just after a week, especially if someone's drinking almost every night, a week after drinking and then 2 weeks, I can just start to see, more happiness and less stress and less worry, which is really nice.
Yeah, that's amazing. Very cool. So what do you have going on today? I mean, I know that we're kind of in this place where, we can't go anywhere. So obviously, I know that your retreat currently is postponed, but you did already have one already planned for September? Or that's what you pushed it back for?
I pushed it back. So I'm just going to plug my
Oh, sure.
computer in real quick. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
So in Sedona, me and Leah Live Free have been hosting retreats, and they're spiritual women's retreats. So last year was our first year, and we did a spring and a fall. So this year we were planning on doing a spring and a fall. So basically we just took our spring retreat and we're pushing it to fall. We haven't picked the dates yet, but I think we're shooting for the first week in September. And so yeah, we'll be doing that in September. And so right now I'm just doing sobriety coaching and working on my garden and doing yoga videos and doing some I have the Facebook group called Live Your Yoga. So just putting content in there, because that's another place where I'll send my sobriety clients just for more tools for them to use. So I've been working on that as well.
Awesome. Very cool. And as always, we'll have all of your show notes and all your Facebook groups, everything in the links below in the show notes. I think I said that wrong, but we're just going to go with it. And awesome. So we have one more question. I have one more question for you. What does conscious coaching mean to you?
For me, conscious coaching just means deep listening and meeting the clients where they are at and just trying to go with the flow and encouraging them to tap into their intuition and to guide them from that space.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Awesome. Do you have anything else that you want to share?
No, I'm just so excited that I got to be on and chat with you. So thank you for having me. And I just want to let anyone know, if they are struggling with their alcohol use at this time, whether you are thinking you want to cut back or you want to get sober. I know I've said this a few times throughout the podcast, but sobriety really can be awesome. And I had so many people that had doubts, and I just kept trying and I kept trying, and I could not picture how I could ever be happy, sober, and free. But I am telling you, I have a crazy past, and I have gotten over the hump, and I have found a new life that I'm so, so grateful for. And if you're struggling, feel free to reach out. I'd love to chat.
So perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Thank you.